And various kinds of portals doing different kinds of roles. So you have mainline portals like MagicBricks, you have brokerage portals, you have portals who are into group buying, you have portals who are aggregators, you have portals who provide news and discussion forums around real estate. You have a lot of variety, and this variety we feel is very good for the consumer because it gives the consumer enough and more choices around the space. Briefly, how do portals work? So you have sellers on one side. I'm sorry, I think that's not visible. So one of those circles is buyers, the other one is sellers, and you have the portal who's in between. So the way it works is people who are sellers, they post their listings, the properties that they have to sell on the portals. They search for buyers. People who are buyers and looking for a property, they in turn post requirements and they look for sellers. And all of this is transacted through the portal. This process throws up a lot of data because both sides register on the portal, they transact with each other on the portal, and this data leads to very useful analytics which the portal then pushes back to buyers and sellers. So in a simplistic sense, this is how portals would function. Let me now get on to the presentation on how real estate portals impact markets. We feel there are four essential things, there are four useful things that real estate portals do. And it is because of these four useful things that they do that they are able to influence or they are able to impact markets. What are these four? One, I think portals aggregate buyers and sellers on a very, very large scale. Two, portals bring convenience and transparency in the purchase cycle, and through this they make more number of transactions possible. Third, because of the enormous amount of data available on the portals, both in the process of buying and selling, that data can translate into a lot of analytics, trends, advice, people who are buyers and sellers, and that becomes very useful to constituents. And lastly, and this is a segment which is still new but will develop as portals mature, is newer services would get added to what portals are doing today, which cover a larger part of the buying cycle. Let me get into each of these in some amount of detail. Now when we say portals aggregate buyers and sellers, what exactly happens? One, even before portals came, property markets were there were buyers, there were sellers in the market. One of the things that portals did is that because buyers and sellers come and register themselves on the portal, it created markets which are visible. So if you're a seller, you came to know who the buyers were, what are they looking for, what kind of apartments, what kind of houses, where are they looking for, what kind of budgets they are looking for. So you suddenly made a pool of buyers visible along with the profile of those buyers. If you're a buyer, you made a group of sellers visible to this market. So in effect, you organized the buyer and seller pool and created a market there. Second, because it's internet, this is a highly scalable model. So while the initial set of growth has come from the larger towns, we believe over the next few years as internet spreads out in India, a lot of the growth would come from smaller towns and would come from NRIs who are based in different parts of the world. The other bit is very different market segments across geographies and across various kinds of property, properties like apartments, plots, villas, low-end housing, top-end luxury housing. All of these are slowly making their presence on real estate portals. So what's the net effect on this? Last 2 years, I think it's seen a huge quantum growth. I'm sorry, I think it's not visible again. I can see it here, but can't see it there. So very large quantum growth in this market. From the number of buyers and sellers, I think anything between a 2 to 5x jump in the number of people who use portals for their buying or selling purposes. Some quick data points, I don't want to spend too much time on this. Last 3 years, I said there's been a lot of growth of these portals. A lot of that growth has come from the top 8 cities in the country. But over the next few years, we foresee a lot of the growth, as I mentioned a while back, to come from smaller tier 3 and tier 4 markets and from the rest of the world. The right hand side, some years ago, most of the type of properties transacted on the portal used to be the first three, which was apartments, houses and plots. Of late, especially over the last year or two, we're finding the variety of or the options available on the portal to be significantly increasing. In fact, this is a small list. There are over 20 different types of apartments, 20 different types of properties which today are available on most real estate portals. So that was one, that portals are able to aggregate buyers, aggregate sellers on a large scale and make them visible to each other. The second point that I mentioned is bringing transparency and convenience to the whole process. Now, if you're a buyer, you put yourself in the shoes of a buyer and you're looking for a house to buy. When you use a real estate portal, the portal gives you a wide choice of apartments or houses that you can pick from. You can also do it in a very convenient manner. You can do it from your home, you can do it from your office, you can choose the houses, you can shortlist the houses. As this market is maturing, people who are sellers are putting more and more information about the listings on the portals. So right now there are images, there are videos, there are webinars, there are chats, all of them available describing the property in far better detail. So if you're a buyer, it's possible today that you can actually shortlist your houses by using a portal, and you can select from a very wide pool of houses which are available. Pre-portal, chances are if you're a buyer looking for houses, you would have to go in the market, inspect a lot of houses, and there would be a limited amount of houses that you would be able to see. Through the portal, you can shortlist the ones that you like and then carry the rest of the process offline. So this convenience is ensuring that more houses are getting selected. A buyer is able to make his choice from a wider pool of houses and thereby adding to the process. The second bit is of transparency. The amount of data which is available on the portal and which is being fed back to buyers and sellers through market trends, through prices, through people who come and advise people on legal matters, etc. It gives, if I may say, more information to the buyer on what he is buying, clarifies doubts. Similarly, builders, brokers, people who are selling houses, they make more information available on the listings and on the portals themselves. So all of this adds to transparency in this whole process. So a mix of making the process convenient and a mix of making it very, very transparent. And we hope that in our own little way, this will do two things. One, people who are reticent, not wanting to buy in property over infrequent dealers in property, they would find it more convenient, more easy to do so, and it would encourage more frequency of transactions in property. Point 3 is the bit on advice and analytics. Right? So, like I said, people who buy or people who sell, they register on the portal, and this process of registering your property or putting a requirement throws up a lot of data. And we are making good use of this data to throw up very useful analytics for this industry. Residential housing is a very, very important segment. Many people say it's a leading indicator of what happens to the economy. But often on the ground, one is hard pressed for data. Now, some of the data that we've got on our portal, we've analyzed it, we've put some analytics behind it, and we've tried to compare how the data looks on the ground. And we've had very, very good correlations. Some of the kind of work that one has done is how prices have moved over the last many years. Right? How prices have moved across localities, how prices have moved across types of apartments, which cities, which localities have seen growth, which places are. So rates and trends is one side of the analytics bit. The second bit is demand side, supply side analytics. What kind of people are buying, what's their profile, do you find more interest in a certain month, right? So that's demand side analytics. Supply side analytics, are more houses coming in a particular locality, is the mix of houses which are available changing. All of this data today is available, and we have made matrices, we have made indexes of it. In fact, we launched a report earlier in the day today, and in your delegate kits you would find one of the reports that we have put out. We call it PropIndex. It's one of the housing indexes that we sort of brought out last quarter. We also run surveys. So you have a very large base of buyers and sellers. So it's possible that you can run surveys with them, with many objectives, to gauge the mood, to gauge how they're responding to certain inputs. And some of these surveys, along with indexes, along with this data, becomes very useful information. So this information, we make it available to our constituents, to people who are in the market, to developers, to policymakers and the like. So that's one kind of information which is available on a portal. Second kind is the expert opinions. People who are associated with us, our own in-house team as well as experts who come on the portal, and they give out information. So opinions, articles, chats, offline panel discussions which we do, all of that throws up a lot of information. Last but a very important bit is what users themselves generate. So many portals offer discussion forums, they offer Q&A platforms. So two things happen here. One, users can ask questions which other users answer. Users can ask questions which experts answer. So we launched a forum about 6 months ago. In the last 6 months we have had about 15,000 odd questions and answers. And today we are in the process of grouping those questions and answers into various kinds of sections and trying to understand what kind of questions come, what kind of questions are increasing. It gives you a sense of what's playing in users' mind. So this, in a snapshot, is the kind of data or analytics that a real estate portal sort of provides, and which we believe would be of significant use to people who are in this market. Lastly, a lot of new services could get added to what portals do. So currently most people use portals only for shortlisting, selecting houses, contacting sellers, sellers contact buyers. But we believe that over a period of time, as the segment grows, various new services could get added here. So that would add value whether you're a buyer or whether you're a seller. It would enable you to do more of your transactions online. Next 2 years, in line with the way internet is growing, we expect a significant jump in adoption, both in terms of more number of people using real estate portals and thereby making this exchange bigger, as well as portals spreading out to both smaller towns as well as NRIs across the world using us. So there's already a fair share. We expect that share to become even larger. Third, the content platform and the analytics which the portals throws up, we expect that to be a differentiator and that to be used significantly more. So in a nutshell, just to summarize, one, portals provide a highly visible and scalable platform for both buyers and sellers. Through convenience and transparency, they make the process of buying, selling, leasing, renting far more easier and thereby drive usage. And lastly, a lot of the data and analytics can be leveraged to understand the markets a whole lot better. Thank you so much.